So we're out here today on another bike ride. I've got the bike down there, I'm walking through this lovely part of the canal. And today I want to speak about something a little bit different. Excuse the camera angle and also excuse the microphone. I left the microphone at home for this section, so hopefully the audio quality is not too bad. Anyway, I want to talk about a specific topic here related to success for young people. Now, I've said this numerous times, you guys will know it because a lot of you are subscribing now. I am 20 years old. At 20 years old, I've got my own online businesses, I run this YouTube channel, and I'm also a student. I do quite a bit in my spare time. And I enjoy it, it's fun, you know, I can do whatever I like for a lot of the time, and I make a decent amount on the side as well. However, even in my life, a lot of the time I feel a bit of, I don't really know what the term is, maybe stagnation, or maybe simply not accelerating to where I want to be as fast as I might want to get there. And that is a frustrating feeling. And I'm sure it'd be at a point in the video like this where a lot of you older and perhaps more distinguished people would be thinking, well, 20 years old, being a student, running all of these businesses, sounds like a decent achievement. But oftentimes it doesn't seem to feel like that. Now, of course, there's a reason for this, and this is something that I really want to discuss because if I'm feeling it, I know a lot of other people will be too. Let's talk about what it actually looks like and why this feeling comes about for so many of us. But also, let's try and avoid the mud on the canal. Not so easy. Now, the demographic of even young people where I see this trend the most is the perhaps more well-achieved young people. The ones, I'd like to say like myself, who kind of know what they want to achieve, where they want to go, but don't necessarily always have the means to get there, whether that's financially or in certain areas in life. It's tough, especially when you're starting out with, understandably, zero experience. It's tough to do that. But this vision, whilst successful for us in the long run, can come with its initial detriments, especially when people like myself are able to look on social media and see numbers of people who are seemingly doing so much better than the likes of myself. Now, deep down, I am doing just fine, and to be honest, I am actually aware of that. If anything, it's that level of self-awareness, if you will, that keeps me on the straight and narrow and essentially makes me understand what's really going on. But I understand that for a lot of people, that's not so easy. They may not have the mental clarity or the vision, and they feel like they've got all of these concepts that are very hard to implement. So let's talk about obviously what brings this about. I think in the modern day that we're in, we're told a lot of things. You know, we live in a world where we're told, essentially, in my opinion, two different ways of doing things. We're told the sort of new way, which is, you know, make money online, do drop shipping, do stock trading, do, I don't know, Airbnb arbitrage or something weird like that. And then we live in the sort of old world where we're told by, whether it be our parents or people in educational positions, you know, what you really want to do is you want to get yourself a job in tech. What you really want to do is you want to get yourself a degree, get yourself working in, I don't know, McDonald's on your weekend. That's a way to succeed, that's a way to get rich. And of course, there's an element of truth to both of these ideas, but like I say, when it comes to straight up ideologies, in my opinion, the honest truth usually lies somewhere between the two facts, the two realities, and I think this is one of those cases where that's really true. So with all of this information out there, we can kind of get a little bit polarized and ultimately get confused because who's right? What side of it's right? Two sets of information which basically contradict each other. It's hard to know what to believe. Now, I think the most important thing to do subsequently is start off with a vision of what we genuinely want. As individuals, do we want a job in corporate? Do we want, you know, to live a cheap lifestyle in a foreign country where you can get essentially more value for your money? Or do we want something completely different? If we're always following the ideas, the teachings, the learnings of others, that's completely fine. And they may actually have our best interests at heart. But even people who have our best intentions at heart, it doesn't mean that they know what they're talking about. It doesn't mean that what they're talking about, despite being the norms and despite being what's objectively right, it doesn't mean it's subjectively correct for you. You see, but due to individuality, which is straight up the thing, obviously, we're all going to want different things. And because of that, to go off on this mindset of, follow this, follow that, is completely wrong. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I can teach you guys, or I can show you how I do my eBay, and I'm more than happy to do that. I can show you how I do other things that I do, and I will be doing that as time goes on. But I'll never tell you about the products themselves that I sell. I'll never tell you about the ways that I do things exactly, and that's not because I want to be shady, it's not because I want to be secretive, it's not because I want to gatekeep ideas. It's because if you want to do this successfully, you're going to have to learn these things for yourself. And that's not me saying it, to be mean or anything. These are just the facts of life. You can get a great education from someone else, but it's harder to do that than it is to learn yourself overall, because when those bad situations happen, which they will, are you going to know how to deal with them the same way? You may not, and that can be very problematic. So that, I think, is definitely step one. Embrace subjectiveness. Understand that what I want, what you want, of probably different things. What the people have taught you may be done with completely good intentions, and probably have been, but it doesn't mean that it's correct, especially older people, because whilst they have a lot of knowledge in a lot of regards that is extremely useful, a lot of the stuff that a lot of old people teach is from a time that may be far gone, and that's definitely worth considering too. So I guess what I'm saying is stage one is to kind of drown out / cancel out the noise. It's impossible to kind of find your way if you're following everybody else's. Step one, figure out what you want, and that's the first step to getting a much more clear version of reality. Because reality, in a few ways, is slightly subjective, and one of them is what you want to achieve with your life. One man's failure is another man's success, vice versa, and the same goes for anything. Take that into account when you're making your decisions. Now, as a third year student, I, as much as anybody else, and anyone who's been a third year student, will understand the amount of pressure that gets piled upon you. Make sure you've got this, make sure you're applying for these sorts of graduate jobs, blah blah blah. And then you have a think about it. This is all work orientated. It's telling us what jobs to get, where to look for jobs, what careers to get. But as I've already made numerous videos talk about the topic, I don't feel the need to do so again. But think about these careers. They don't pay us what they should, and they don't offer us the personal or career development that we perhaps may want. So maybe these are not in our best interests. It's important to understand this and make this point because, once we understand that the people who essentially we work for and who we are told to invest so much time to and into don't care about us, once we realise that, we're a lot more free to make our own minds up. So that's step one. I guess separating the importance, or the seeming importance, of getting a good job. You do this at your own pace. If you've got a family that supports you or can support you, it really is then just about making something of yourself, and really that means a lot of things to a lot of different people. Obviously my channel is based around money and finance. That means something to me. To many others it doesn't mean a thing, and it shouldn't. If you want to just live the cheap life and be happy and comfortable, do that. That's important to understand. I think another great source of confusion is TikTok and the like. I see myself as someone who, obviously makes videos and hopefully can do well doing so. But even when I'm talking about my businesses, I'm in a scruffy coat on a bike walking through a path with graffiti on it. This is nothing special. This is real life. Irrespective of how much I make, this is my life. I'm not sat in Dubai, I'm not sat in Monaco, I'm not sat in London even. I'm in a real part of the world, doing real people things. This is what it looks like to be 20 in my opinion, and that will be different to everybody else. Some days I'm out in my car, some days I'm out on foot, blah blah blah, but this is 20-year-old life. And that's fine, right? That's actually pretty nice. You don't have to worry about too much. But I think a lot of confusion comes in from the fact that certain people, myself included, may sit there sometimes and think, oh, I'm supposed to have, 2 degrees, like a master's, and blah blah blah, and this 6-figure job, and this 6-figure business, and this, my own family ready to go, and getting a mortgage on a place. That's not how most 20-year-olds live now. It's not how most 20-year-olds have ever lived. Let's be honest. That's okay, but understanding this is important too. I think the real problem here is a lack of, say, moral guidance and a lack of willingness to help people with self-actualization. You're a person, you have a personality, you have a vibe. There's something about you that people will like, there's something about you that people won't like, there's something about you that you may not like that people will. You are not a piece of productivity alone. We live in a society that places too much emphasis and onus on work. Work is cool, in a way, if it achieves something. Work can be fun, and work can be meaningful. But it's not necessarily everything. Of course we want all of these assets, but we need to think about whether we actually want them. And ultimately, if we want to do what it takes, as in the trade-off, to actually get them, that's very worthwhile as well. A lot of the times people look at these things and look at these assets, and they're being led down a lifestyle that they wouldn't even want. They don't want the lifestyle, and that's okay. But they're told it's what they should have. It's because, and it's not necessarily, in my opinion, our young people's fault. There's a lack of individual thought anymore. It's a collective mindset, You should have this car, you should have this business, you should get this job, you should be wearing this coat and this, and these shoes, and driving around in this area and doing this in your holidays. Do what you want, man. That's the fun of life. I guess what I'm trying to say is, in my opinion, say corporate culture, work culture and popular culture have become too morphed. The concept of, oh, I'm a hustler, this and that. That's great. I see myself as a bit of a hustler. But it's not necessarily fun, and that's worth noting. I guess the concept of being behind or ahead relies on one thing, an objective, a goal. You can't be necessarily behind or ahead if you're not working towards anything. So you need to have something to work towards. But if that goal's not common, then how can we say that we're behind or ahead? It then ceases to make any sense at all. It makes no sense. And again, if that objective is something that we don't believe in, we're not behind or ahead. Also, factor in the individuality. The fact that, let's say, US presidents, for example, someone like Obama became a president fairly young. Someone like Trump or Biden, fairly old. It's the same office, same responsibilities, the same job, and the same set of life goals, but it happens differently to different people. So, I think for true happiness, stop looking at these 5-year-old millionaires or these 15-year-old millionaires who, do this and that online to make a fortune. It's great that they've been able to do that, but it may not be your path, and quite frankly, that's okay. But it's about realising that and understanding that that is not problematic. That's completely alright. You're allowed to do things slower, faster, and I think for every stage of life there's enjoyment to be had. At 20 years old, again, you don't have too much to worry about. Everything's quite fun. You're quite young. It's like 3 in the afternoon now, and I'm walking along a canal. Say if I was 40 in an office, which is not something I want to be, but let's just say, for example, I couldn't be doing that right now, could I? And I may not have the physical fitness to do it anymore, and all these different factors, really. I think when I'm walking around and cycling and whatnot, my thoughts can become a little bit incongruent. So I want to kind of finish this video off now, but kind of reaffirm the message all in one. Our young people feel behind, in my opinion, and out of the people I've spoken to, in my circles and of course myself, because of a culture around work, around education, getting a good job, spending less time on physical well-being, mental well-being, actual life achievement, self-actualization. These are all periphery factors, when in actuality these are the most important things for a good life. You need to know who you are, who you want to be, what you want to be, where you want to be it. This is what matters way more. But that's being essentially sold off in exchange for money. That's creating confusion itself. And when you tie that to this culture being everywhere, you know, open your phone, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube for 5 minutes, see some guy sat on a yacht with some super expensive watch, with some beautiful girls, with some super expensive car. This is common to see on the internet. But is it realistic? For some it is. You might be the guy that does that at 40 or 50 or 60. And you know what? You may never be the guy that does it. Because maybe it's just not what you want. Neither's wrong. But it's this lack of direction and this sole focus on money that I personally think is confusing a lot of young people. They don't know where to look for guidance. They don't know what to believe in. It's just my opinion, but tell me what you guys think in the comments. I am out for this one, so goodbye, and I'll leave you some shots with the river.